Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome here if you're new. A common question that kind of pops up in the comments and here and there is basically, why am I speaking about leaving Islam? Why am I talking about any of this in general? Why don't I just keep my mouth shut and just get on with my life as if nothing happened? And trust me, I did do that for a long time. I kept this to myself. But I'm here today to explain why I do speak about this. Before I start, I should say that I'm an ex-Muslim convert to Islam. I post videos about my experience, what it was like to grow up in a Western world and then join an ideology which is probably the most opposite to the Western way of thinking that you can find. In that experience, I learned so much. So much, not just about me, but at this ideology, how it affects the wider world in general. And I'm going to explain to you why I talk about it, just so it's here on the record. So let's get going. Right from the get-go, I have been accused of being a hater, being, bigoted, or just wanting to draw hatred, even though I have every right to feel angry about what I went through, that's actually not the motivation for why I get up here and do this. Like, not at all. I actually want to say, first of all, I respect the right of everyone to be religious. Like, I'm not against people being religious. I'm not against even people following Islam. I respect everyone's right because that's a human right. You are allowed to go and choose what you find to be the correct belief system for you. But there is something that all of us also possess, which is called freedom of speech. And first and foremost, I have a right to speak about these things. As much as it might seem in this modern world that that right is slowly being eroded in some areas, but deep down, this is my fundamental right and the right of everyone. I'm allowed to come on here and criticize ideologies just because some people might not like that or they might find it offensive. Well, I don't know, vegans find eating meat offensive. Does that mean we're all going to stop eating meat? No, of course not. Because as I said, it's the right to freedom of expression of your beliefs, freedom of speech to express what you see fit. As I said, as long as you're not spreading hatred, then this is the West. This is the West. This is one of the fundamental values that so many Western civilizations were built on. I'm just exercising that right. But actually, it's not just about principles. I'm not just doing this for the principles. I don't just come up here and speak online because I can. First of all, I have my own personal story. I have my own life story, and I know how much Islam affected me. I can't lie and say that, that isn't one of the main motivations. On a kind of individual level, I saw how I fell for the kind of Dawa sound bites. I fell for the lies of the Dawa people. I fell for the propaganda. I fell for the misinformation. And I don't hate myself for that anymore, but I think that can happen to many people, and not just people interested in Islam, not just Muslims. It also happens to non-Muslims too. I feel like I've shared my truth about so many things, and I guess that's just a way to validate my own life and not to feel like I'm just floating on by. I've had traumatic events in my life, and I just wanted to almost document some of those to kind of just feel like I just didn't go through that and it was all just for nothing. I'll be honest and say yes, there's a personal element as to why I do this, which relates to me. But I do see a much bigger picture here. A bigger picture which is worrying, concerning, and as everything in life, what happened to me on my personal level, I can see happening in other areas of society on a bigger scale. Something I learned when I was a Muslim. And even if you're not a Muslim, you can probably observe this. This is an ideology which wants to silence people. It does not like to be challenged at all. In fact, it refuses to be challenged. But it does mean that this is a supremacist belief. And I can't hammer that home enough. This is totalitarian. There's no room for change. There's no room for evolution. This is the be all and end all in the eyes of God and in the eyes of devout followers. And I just don't think in the West we're used to that anymore. We're not used to ideologies which are so bold and unapologetic about themselves. We've grown up here with a kind of idea that everyone has a right to, I guess it's a Western value, that everyone has a right to their own religion, as I mentioned earlier. We've been taught in kids in school, at least I know I was, and most people in the UK and in other Western countries, we are taught to embrace our differences. But what I learned when I was Muslim is that Islam doesn't teach this message. It teaches at its core that this is the correct way of life. This is God's chosen religion for people. There's no room for doubts. There's no room for bending the knee. You either accept it or it pushes itself onto you. And that's the truth. And to really complicate the works, for the past 20 plus years, we've been told things about Islam which actually don't reflect the true nature of the ideology. And obviously, there was a push to accept Islam as a religion of peace, or even now in the West, in the modern day, there's a push to accept that Islam is some sort of oppressed belief system and that it's unfairly targeted. And I'm not talking about Muslims, I'm talking about the beliefs held within Islam. Words like Islamophobia, where people are taught to believe that disliking Islam is some sort of phobia. The reason this is so problematic, and part of the motivation I come on here and speak, is because actually Islam doesn't say any of this about itself. There's nothing in Islam which keeps pushing itself as a religion of peace. As I've said, it's not. Its name actually means submission. It's a religion of domination, of expansion, of supremacy. And it makes no apologies for that. So when you have this toxic combination of silencing critics of Islam, pushing a false narrative, whilst people, sheikhs and imams and dawah people actually knowing the true nature of this religion and what it actually aims to do on a grander scale, in my opinion, that's a recipe for disaster. People have the right to be informed. We shouldn't be gaslit. We shouldn't be lied to. We shouldn't be tricked into thinking that this is something that it's not. And why should it get put on a pedestal? Why should it be silenced? Critics should be silenced while Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, all these other belief systems are able to be criticized. People are not scared to openly talk about the Bible and question its legitimacy or not. People are not scared to talk about the controversial elements of the Old Testament, for example. And here in the UK, I see people mocking Hinduism all the time in places like Speaker's Corner and here on YouTube. It's like nobody bats an eyelid. Nobody comes out and tries to silence those people. And for so long, people have been terrified of speaking out against Islam, even though, as I said, it's meant to be a religion of peace. So when I get up here, when other ex-Muslims, other critics come onto places like YouTube and just actually talk about what is in the Quran, what's in the Hadith, what does this religion actually say about itself? Not our opinion, not us making this up. We're not being bigoted. Let's just put it out there. That's the best tactic against ideologies that want to silence you. If they try and shut people down, well, let's just put out a counter narrative so people can be informed at least, right? I don't care if people want to interpret this as something peaceful on a personal level. Okay, feel free to do that. But at least keep it open, keep the discussion open. Allow people to read the Quran for themselves, allow them to read the Hadith for themselves and make their own mind up without being made to feel like there's some sort of racist or bigot for just being horrified at passages that, let's face it, are actually horrific. So moving on to another reason why I get up here and talk about this, as I keep mentioning, Islam, wherever it goes, doesn't change really. It's the religion itself is to keep itself preserved as original to the true form as it can. And with that comes 7th century values and traditions, but in the modern world. if fully informed adults want to choose to live like a 7th century Arabian, feel free, that's your choice. But I'm here talking about those who don't want to follow this, who are forced, who are coerced into following this, whilst they see everyone around them able to do what they want, able to choose what they want. Because people are scared to leave, because, there are things like apostasy laws, there's a social stigma, people are scared to leave. Some people don't have any outlet to even talk about this in real life. They have no one to talk to. I was there once myself, but I can't lie, I'm from a privileged position. I wasn't born into a family who wanted to keep me in the faith. I was lucky that I was able to work my way out safely and reestablish myself and find my new belief system, reestablish what my values are, and choose to be the woman I want to be in the 21st century. But I know full well that not everyone has that privilege. In fact, many people don't have the privilege of that. And the worst thing is, they have those human rights, but they're not able to exercise them because of people forcing ideologies onto them, whether by social reinforcement, by coercion, or just from the fear that's been instilled in them by birth. This gets a hold on people in ways which are just unacceptable. There are people up and down this country in the West and further who are trapped in situations which they should not be trapped in. And that needs to be exposed. That needs to be spoke about. People need to bring attention to it wherever they can, wherever they're safe to do so, as I said. And I think some people are just unaware of it. I think some non-Muslims are actually unaware of what it is to be a Muslim, what it is to be born into a Muslim family when you want to leave. They just don't have any concept of it. As I said, they're just not used to that anymore. They're not used to that fear of just being who you want to be. They're privileged to be born in this part of the world. And that's why I think it's so important to get up here, share stories, expose what's going on, make people aware of what's going on in people's lives, to create a ripple effect of awareness, which helps people in infinite ways. The suffering that this ideology can inflict on certain people needs to be highlighted. It needs to be spoke about. There's injustices going on all around us, and those people deserve a voice, even when they can't speak for themselves. I now actually see so many people being silenced in wider society. They try and speak about the concerns they have and they're just shut down. And it's been going on for too long now. And I see this here in my own country. There are Islamists who are like people who are like political Muslims who actually want to further Islam. They want to use political institutions or our established institutions of power to actually do so. And these people are very smart in trying to create that fear, that atmosphere of fear, intimidation, and using labels such as racism and conflating religious beliefs with racial identity or ethnicities. And the reason they do that is, as I said, it's an attempt to silence us because these people do want to expand. I mean, at the end of the day, they're only following what they believe is true, and their God is telling them to expand, and that's what they're trying to do. I have seen it with my own eyes. Sectors of our society, people slowly but surely pushing elements of Sharia law in places where it shouldn't be. Yeah, very subtly trying to get us okay with certain elements of Islam that we might not necessarily be comfortable with. So yeah, as I said, as a UK citizen, I don't want to see this country lose the open, tolerant society that we've built. I want it to remain a place for everyone. But as I said, just not a place where certain voices, certain critics are shut down while other ideologies are allowed to flourish. When I speak out, when I share my story, just saying it as it is, it's not about hate. Actually, it's the opposite. It's about really spreading tolerance, because there is so much intolerance to people who have been through this ideology, don't want to be affected by this ideology anymore. And they're bullied into submission, they're intimidated, they're silenced. So, as I said, it's about spreading tolerance, spreading awareness, and and doing so unapologetically. It really just comes down to that at the end of the day. So yeah, guys, thank you again so much for watching. I hope this video explained it in a kind of, roundabout way. I hope still that it was informative for anyone who comes across this video and happens to watch it or has been wondering why I do what I do. If you like it, give it a like. If you want to see more, or you just like this kind of content in general, consider subscribing to the channel. And yeah, but anyway, if you watched, thank you so much. As always, I will see you guys in the next video, and I wish all of you the absolute best. Thank you for watching.